In this powerful and soul-stirring episode, we step into the deeper dimensions of tattooing with Michelle and EAIN Varga of Varga Medical Art, joined by the visionary Stacie-Rae. These three aren't just artists, they're healers, leaders, and passionate advocates for the transformative power of the tattoo craft. We dive into the concept of tattooing as ancient medicine, exploring how trauma, identity, resilience, and healing all intersect under the needle. With decades of combined experience, this trio shares heartfelt stories, challenges traditional narratives, and calls us all to remember the sacred responsibility we carry as artists. From the emotional impact on the artist to the lifelong journey of the client, from the tension of competition to the unity art can foster, this episode is a must-listen for anyone who's ever believed that tattooing is more than skin deep. Join me now as we take another look into the business of tattooing.
Rob, you're looking like Mr. Clean today. I'm going to make a song about that now.
I think this is the look I go for every day, pretty much.
Right?
I'm trying to get that stunt double deal. Yeah, I get that one a lot. How's life in Oregon?
It was 96 degrees yesterday with probably 80 to 90% humidity. And, you know, we're building a house. And so Ian was drenched all the way down. Like his jeans were drenched all the way into his boots. It was great.
Yeah, I was watching, I was kind of checking some of your stuff out a couple days ago, and I saw him running some jackhammer through some rocks or something and crazy shit. And
yeah, water line.
Yeah. I'm coming out there in September.
I know you are, so you need to come stay with us. I got a room for you.
Yeah, I've got a whole like plan because I'm bringing my daughter out and my fiance. But
hold on. BRB.
yeah, I want to try to get to well, I want to take them specifically to see like Multnomah Falls and Mount Hood and the Columbia Gorge and just some cool shit like that, you know, and then do that whole
For the Evergreen?
Yeah, I'll be there, but I'm gonna come to Evergreen for like Saturday, I think.
Okay.
Just come through there on Saturday,
Okay.
and because it's not like that's not their main show. This is like their smaller show, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Do you go to that one?
Well, they asked if I wanted to come to that one last year, but like seriously, I'm building so much right now with Ian that doing any kind of convention would be too much on me personally with the surgeries and with everything that I've been going through.
Yeah. So your tattooing business is just really just flourishing. You're staying super busy right now, huh?
Totally busy. Yeah.
Yeah, so is there a lot of competition in your space really or not so much like regular tattooing? Like there's just complete oversaturation of, you know, tattoo studios everywhere and just like seems like artists are hit and miss whether they're busy or starving, and it's like crazy landscape right now.
It is. So if you know much about Oregon, they're pumping out probably 4,500 students, you know, throughout the year is what I was told. I don't know if that's true, but there's so many new licensures. And so I have been working on something that I'm not going to talk about today, but it's getting a little overwhelming because there's way too many brand new tattooers, and they're all opening up brand new shops like the first day that they get licensed.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to me because I've always thought Oregon had the strictest tattoo regulations in the United States in regards to like everything you got to go through to get a license, but the education side is really lacking, it seems.
Mm-hmm. The education is weak, so I don't want to go too deep onto that with us being recorded. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's okay. I have a lot of history out there. You know, I haven't been back out to Oregon in quite a few years, but I used to spend a lot of time out there when I was kind of traveling with Chris 51 and all of that crew, Heather Miranda and all those people. But
Right.
I don't even think Heather lives in Oregon anymore. I think she moved.
No, she's here.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, she's at a shop about 2 miles from me.
Okay.
Because she'd opened up Wicked Sister and she's amazing. Like she is phenomenal. And so I don't know what happened with all that, but her ideas were great. The vision was huge. And I don't know what happened because she's amazing.
Yeah, she built a whole damn curriculum and like it was crazy, very, very substantial. And I got accredited kind of like stuff approved for that and all that. And I was like, damn. Yeah, I've talked to her a little bit, but she didn't get into too much detail about why she kind of gave it up. But I've encouraged her to kind of pick that back up. I think that was really, really good.
Yeah. Well, there's things that we should talk about with all that too. I know Stacie and I have been talking about these things, and there's just a lot of regulatory things that are more of a new school situation with tattooing versus the old apprenticeships, which I really think needs to come back regardless of taking a course. When I got done with tattoo school, I did an 18-month by my choice apprenticeship because I didn't want to just go out in the world flinging and slinging.
Right.
Then I further educated myself with Stacie because I wanted to be the best nipple artist in our area. So I think the education is something that you have to seek out, and it has to be self-driven, and you have to want to know more, and you have to compete with yourself every single day to be better.
That's
Sure.
really hard though, because people who are wanting to get into tattooing don't have a lot of options. People that are good are booked and they're not really taking on apprentices. And now we've got this because there's no regulations, and Oregon was a testing ground. And I'm really involved with the APT and I'm on the education committee. And so we're having these conversations on how do we solve these problems that are out there. Oregon was like a failed testing ground because and you don't want to limit how many artists people can take, but now everyone's turning into schools because we're oversaturated. And now there's this competition coming in that we never really had before in tattooing. And it feels a little bit like a free for all and no respect for values.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. We talk about this stuff a lot, and I'm also involved with the APT and AFDO now. I've gotten pretty heavily involved with AFDO, and Sean Brown and I are now working on another project to try to bring the manufacturers together in the space to deal with regulatory compliance and just, I've always been an advocate for safety in the tattoo space, and it's nice to be able to have a platform now to where I can really voice that more and educate the tattoo public on these topics. And so I commend you guys both for doing your part in that as well.
Well, it has to do with what Stacie and I and my husband, we're very passionate about helping other people when it comes to tattooing. If you go way back, looking at Otzi, looking at all these different past historical figures, and you think about it, it wasn't always, oh, that's so pretty. It was more about trauma, and it was more about helping somebody get through their day or identifying somebody as a warrior, or, it was an identity and a culture. So I think what's happening is it's shifted to a competition of who's the best drawer. But
that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's one of the reasons we've seen so much evolution in this field, because there's tattoos that are being done now. I've been tattooing since the 90s, and there's tattoos being done now that I'm like, I never thought that was possible. And
Right.
there it is.
Right. And I love it. It's painting on skin in my brain.
Well, now we even have robots tattooing on people. So we're entering into a whole new we're entering into a whole new dimension in tattooing. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, AI brings a whole new element to the craft, to the trade.
Mhm.
And that's a scary concept because it's moving so damn fast. It's like the evolutionary speed of AI is lightning fast. It's just crazy. Like you can't even keep up with it day to day, how fast it moves.
Right. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, Stacie, in regards to, the number of people coming in and not being able to get apprenticeships, because that's definitely a problem. And then the flip side of that problem is that we have uneducated people teaching people how to tattoo. I mean, hell, even in some cases you have apprentices that do an apprenticeship, quote unquote apprenticeship, for 6 months, and then they go out on their own and they're bringing on an apprentice or two apprentices after only 6 months of whatever education they're getting. And it's just crazy. So I'm not sure how to really combat that. I know APT is trying to work on like formalized education approaches to things like that, which is great. I would love to see that. That's why I mentioned Heather, because I think she was really onto something in regards to, you know, like a true, genuine academic approach to, you know, teaching people how to tattoo, and not just tattoo, but all the other elements that go into tattooing, you know, composition and color theory and understanding skin types and conditions of skin and tones of skin and how to deal with all of this different stuff that you're not going to generally learn in a traditional apprenticeship anyway.
I've been involved with AFTO for quite some time too, and gave a presentation at their Phoenix event in 2021. And so it's nice to be involved with these forces that are really going to be the change makers, and they really need to have somebody there who understands what's going on in the field. And I'm one of Canada's first female tattoo artists. I've seen tattooing go through a lot of changes. And then when cancer came into my life, I pivoted to areola restoration. And that was 15 years ago. And I reinvented the whole kind of approach to it. They were using circle templates, all of them. I'm like, no, dude, like, let me teach you about stencils at least, and building up the foundation of realism, like helping them understand the language of realism a little bit. And so the evolution is upon us, which is good. So what the APT has been doing is they had an apprenticeship syllabus and a master test over 30 years ago. And so we've spent the last almost 2 years updating everything and bringing it, like, just making it modern and making sure the right questions apply. And they had a question in there from how many times do you use the same needle? I'm like, wow, tattooing's come a long way. Tattooing has come a long way. I was also working with Sean Brown for a little bit about education, but then MOCRA hit and we really had to pivot and pay attention to MOCRA. And that's really his wheelhouse. That's where his strengths are, is understanding all that stuff. And like you said, knowing everyone to bring everybody together. So the evolution is upon us, and it's really exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah. Hey, there he is. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, brother?
How are you, man?
You know, always on the go.
Yeah.
Go.
You've been hard at work, I saw.
Yeah. Oh, what? Yeah. Oh, man. I'll tell you what. You know, it's just like,
You need a couple helping hands out there, man.
I do. Yeah. Big strong bull like yourself. You like working out, man. You like you know, healthy. Healthy toiling in the dirt, right?
Yeah, no problem, man. It's just the only problem is I'm halfway across the country.
That's okay. He'll be here in September.
Everybody's got their excuse, Rob. It's okay.
My back hurts too, man.
Yeah, right. It's all good, you know. It's all for the righteousness, and when it's all done, it'll. Well, it's never done. That's the thing, right? Nothing is ever done. If you set yourself to a goal, right, and you get there, then what? You know. You make a new goal, but when it's a or when it's a life goal, for instance, I've talked to some football players, I've known some throughout the years, some Raiders, and and when they the whole right is to get to the Super Bowl, and that's it, right? And they get there, and they bask in the glory, but then it's like, oh, now what? Right? I did it. I got the ring,
and I hurt.
Some of these guys. Oof. Yeah. I think I'm in pain, but set yourself to good checkpoints along the way. It's just kind of what we're talking about here, right? Is you have to be able to bend to the future, right? You have to be able to it's not all about that end, right? It's not all about, oh, this is it. No, everything is always constantly morphing and changing, and
I'm sorry. We were just talking. He didn't know. He did not hear our conversation just now. That's how good that intuition is.
Yeah. I think he's got a bug
all day long. We have that that hands-on.
It's an empathy.
It is an empathy, and that's the thing.
Stacie has it. I know you have it.
A lot of us tattoo it, but we know who we are, right? It's almost like we've known each other forever.
Right.
hey, what's up, man? You know, you just first met, right? And then
Yeah, we just connect.
right, straight up, you know, and that's just that, and it should be fluid, right? Conversation should be fluid. You shouldn't, if you're having a conversation with somebody and it's like, you know, yeah, it's just time to, you know, check please, you know, because it's just not,
Right.
it's not worth your time. It's not worth the, you know, all the pains and stakes that go along with business relationship. The guy at 7-Eleven that just wants to know what brand of cigarettes you want to buy, you know. But if you go in there and say, hey, give me a pack of cigarettes, right? And he reaches in the counter and he throws you a pack of Camels, and you're like, hey, I don't want Camels, I want Marlboros. You know, and the guy's like, oh, well, why don't you take your Marlboros and, you know, have a, you know, right? But you know, if you go in there and you're specific, right? I speak in metaphors a lot. It helps, you know, it helps with the rest of society.
You and I do too.
Then you go in there and you say, hey, you know, can I get a pack of Marlboros, please? And the guy's like, yes, you can, right?
Be
Grabs them,
direct.
right? Bing,
Speak
bang,
with
right?
intention.
You're done, right? Speak with intention, know what you want, with love and grace,
Yeah.
obviously, and respect, and you can get those things.
And
right?
truth. I think that's kind of why I think it's important for us. If we're talking about medical tattooing, the truth be known, there's a lot of trauma. People are out there suffering in this world, and that's what drove he and I into doing this. And I've had lots of deep conversations with Stacie. All three of us have severe trauma, and Stacie, most importantly, she's had trauma on the level of what we're doing and how we're helping people. So she's validated, and I see her, Ian sees her, and I've never met somebody go through so much and still here I am. And it's important to me for her to continue to be right here, right here in Oregon. I can't wait for you to come here.
Yeah. I want to get into all that because it touches me too, because my mother died of breast cancer. My sister has just been going through breast cancer, and interestingly enough, also has taken up medical tattooing and got into nipple reconstruction tattooing. And so that's she's connecting with that trauma through tattooing as well. So it's definitely close to my home base as well. But I'm very interested, and just before we talk about that, I kind of wanted to touch on what Ian just said, because Stacie, I was just at the AFDO conference last week in Dallas, and it was the first time that I went there, and it was I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was like, oh, I'm going to be this heavily tattooed guy going into this room with all these regulators and food and drug officials, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to mesh my energy with theirs? But it was crazy because it was super fluid, and they freaking just like gravitated to me, and it was like really weird. I was just like kind of really, because it was just so much going on, but it was super cool and very energetic and definitely inspiring. And I came away from there with like a crazy amount of energy and just started working on some things right after that. And so that's cool. I love being involved with AFDO and Sean Brown, and it's real cool that you've been involved with it for so long too. So I just wanted to comment on that real quick.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's just dive right into the meat and potatoes of your medical tattooing and talk about all that and the significance of that in your lives and your careers. How does it
Can I-
start? Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit, and I'll tell you what
Sure.
I've seen in the last 15 years?
Yeah.
So I started tattooing in 1996, and I tattooed my first scar in 1999. You know, I was taught good values. He's like, don't touch scar tissue for at least 3 years. And so I did a scar cover up on myself, and I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. I did a pretty good job, and I didn't make the scar worse. And so then I started, my friends that have been asking me, they're like, you can cover this scar, and people are asking me about it all the time, you know, self-harm scars and stuff. And so I started saying yes to all these requests. And back then it was like one tattooer a town. So the tattooers in the next town were like, oh, Stacie-Rae covered that? Awesome. I'll send her all my scar people. Nobody was teaching this stuff. And And so I quickly became the go-to, and people were sending me kind of everything. And out in my naivety, unfortunately, I did it all. And I made some mistakes. And so when I saw these mistakes coming back, these tattoos coming back, and the scar was worse or the color didn't hold, I really kind of like locked my head onto it. I had met Paul Jeffries when I was younger, and he was doing a scar cover up when I met him, and he let me sit in on it for a couple hours. And he said, the scar will tell you how to tattoo it, but you got to know how to listen. So I really just kind of set about to like, how do I listen to scar tissue? Obviously, the machine feedback, the skin feedback, all of those things. And I felt really bad about the, I just don't know how much to say here. Sorry, because it's so interesting. I felt really bad about the scars that were coming back that I didn't do a good job of. Really just tortured me. Sleepless nights. You guys know how that is. You just tear yourself apart. Like, what did I do wrong? How do I make sure I never make that mistake again? And I started kind of reverse engineering the entire process. And I really learned how different scars were. So when my mom got diagnosed with cancer, I was like, oh my God, is this my calling? It just felt like it was. And I took a seminar at the Reno National Convention in 2007 with Vivian Lazonga and Mary Jane Hawk. And they were talking about mastectomy tattooing. And I was like, I could bring this to Canada. I could do this. I've learned enough from scars that I'm not making those same mistakes anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, how wonderful would this be? And so I took my first areola training in 2010, and it was really led by the PMU world. And I was like, I was trying to make sense of what they were trying to teach me, and it didn't line up with what I knew about tattooing at all. None of it did. And that training, they had nurses there who had never tattooed, never taken a tattoo training, didn't even hold a machine in the training. They watched a video of a tattoo being done, didn't even hold a tattoo machine, and then went home to the hospital they were working at in Columbus and just was like, okay, I know how to tattoo now. And I was like, oh my God, they're tearing people apart. And so that's when I really became an activist for this. And I created a solution and I put it together. And so since then, Michelle and Ian have kind of started getting involved in it. And I think that I really believe personally that this is a body artist area. We're working with damaged tissue. It's artistic, like we have to create an optical illusion. And I believe that should be left to the people who draw a lot and work on all kinds of skin tones and stuff like that. So that's my little background on what I've seen so far. Ian?
Yeah, I totally agree. An artist, I say this a lot, and, to people looking to get, work done is like, well, what are you looking for? And really it's a tattooist. We just got lost, but okay, we're good.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Are we on?
You can see
you guys are good. Yeah.
I have to, sorry, I have to get this thing back because it was about to die. I didn't realize it. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm like, shit. The heat from the iPad.
It's like, yeah, okay. I'm an artist, okay? I'm not a computer, I am not that guy. I'm like, look, can you draw this? I absolutely can. You'll probably AI the hell out of it and have fun with that, but I'll draw it, yeah. And this tattoo, except for you and the people who steal my work, which does happen a lot, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with Stacie. Absolutely, is there's a difference between a tattooist and a tattoo artist. Oh man, I would love to do what you do. You can do that. You can learn how to run a machine just like anybody else can learn how to run a machine. If you put the hours in to know how to run that machine, hands-on, not using people for canvases like we did 29 years ago, namely myself, right? So, which I still have the first tattoo, obviously, that I did 20. Well, no, actually, I was 14 when I got my first tattoo.
That's way longer than you're almost 50.
Yeah. I didn't do that. That was a stick and poke of my buddy, but my first was 20. I still got my business card from 29 years ago, actually.
Cool. That's awesome.
It's still pretty awesome, man. It was an awesome card.
Provocative.
It was
everything he draws is sex.
We're talking about the 90s here, right? But yes, a difference between a tattooist and a tattoo artist. 100%, you know, and so yeah, you can learn how to run a machine if you can draw a straight line. Obviously, you know, a lot of people, which I can hit a pretty straight line even if I was in the back of a pickup truck wheeling. You know, I mean, my my iPad holder is nothing more than an armrest from like 20, well, maybe 15 years old. You know, I just strap it to it, you know, with some cellophane, and hey, it works. Yeah, and I always, every single tattoo I do, I'm like, maybe one day I'll get a new iPad holder or iPad holder. But you know,
I know what to get you for Christmas.
all right, all right. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. That's, you know, a theory of mine too. But yes, this is art, but it's medical, right? And of course, every tattoo is medical. And this is what these, you know, a lot of people don't understand. You know, you're breaking the blood barrier to the human body. You know, it is absolutely, it's not for the light of heart. It's not for somebody that doesn't understand. And that's why I think here, you know, in Oregon with the schooling that's going on, you know, these people think that they're going to go to school and they're going to learn how to be this awesome tattoo artist, and that's just not the way it works.
And then 10 years later, all of a sudden it goes,
or however
Or
long.
doesn't.
Like I told her, you know, I told my wife, oh my God, I can't, you know, the line, and I'm like, one day, all of a sudden, the tattoo gods will be like, you are worthy. It really does happen like that. You guys know. I mean, come on. Some of us can't remember how long or it happened because it was so long ago, but or when particularly. But you know, when you're dealing with, right, Stacie, you know, you're creating a 3D version of whatever it is that we need to amplify and give you the thought that is real and true, and actually achieve that goal. You know,
it's
like
helping to heal.
you know, Stacie and Michelle do areolas that are just unbelievable. I mean, could I do it? Sure. I'm an artist, and I my own style, of course. We all have our own style. And you know, I would love to do that. But I know where my, you know, I know where a comfort zone is. And the thing of it is you know, these women and some men, but there just isn't a large number of you know, people that would actually, you know, would want this tattooed, you know, Rob, like you said, you know, you're walking in this convention, like, man, these people like neck tat, you know, I'm slung back, and you know, so I mean, I totally get that, and I know where my boundaries are, and sure, would it be? Could I? Yes, but it would be a very small amount when, you know, they've been through so much trauma already. You know, they've already gone through so much hell. Last thing they need is another trigger for an event, you know, in the future. And you know, especially, you know, women who've, you know, Michelle's gone through cancer, Stacie, right?
It's gone through some trauma. We've got trauma.
You know, major, you know, in those things. Rob, yes, you know, I don't think there's anyone that doesn't have someone remotely close to them in their family that has not been affected by cancer.
Sure.
It's just, you know, it's huge, and so what we do, you know, is it's not just, oh, hey, you know, I've been tattooing for a long time, I can do this. And yeah, you know, hey, like Stacie said, hey, that's kind of how we start. We're like, all right, I'm gonna, but we still did some due diligence and research. We most likely tattooed on ourselves, you know, right? You're not gonna hurt somebody else. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna hurt myself to try to figure it out, you know, possibly, or get the knowledge from somebody who knows. How about get a pig skin?
Yeah.
You know, I tell us, what do you know, the rubber things, man,
Rubber things are great. Stacie's are amazing.
Stacie's are awesome. But any other one, I picked one, you know, one of those slabs of, right, literally maybe 10 seconds, not Stacie's, but you know, years ago,
The old square one.
10 seconds. Yeah. And I threw it, you know, I was like, I will never do that again, you know. And I just want to see, you know, what the texture was like, what it is. I get it in theory, and the world we live in now, you know, it's just so. But look,
Well, that's
the reality of it is pigs are dying because people eat bacon. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can go down to the butcher and say, hey, man, can I get it? And they'll be like, no problem. And they'll load you up with some pigskin that you can stick in the freezer.
Bro, when I was learning to tattoo, I went to the butcher shop and bought boxes of pig ears.
Yeah.
Yep.
$40, they give you a whole damn box of frozen pig ears.
Listen to this. Listen to this. The guy that was mentoring me, we went to the thrift store and he bought me a bunch of dolls with like the rubber bendable legs and I tattooed on them. It was actually really great. It worked. Now I got all these weird dolls.
Right? Man, I had this whole plan. What? Probably. I even mentioned it when we got together, but even before that, because yeah, I've done a lot of things in my life. I haven't been a tattoo artist, because that's what I am, not a tattooer. Well, we're tattooers, but consistently. I mean, you know what I mean? If that's all I did for the last almost 30 years, yeah, you would know you'd be like, oh, there's that guy that was on this and that, whatever. But so I've really, buckled down over the past 10 years and over the past 5, the paramedical, the knowledge and the, and that, yeah, it does not come light at heart. It doesn't come with a look, oh, I've been tattooing, I can do this. You're dealing with amputation, you're dealing with mental health, you're dealing with so many things that aren't just for $1. Okay, I'll buy that for $1. Well, it's not about the dollar. No. And that's the thing.
It's not about money.
Michelle and I and Stacie, this, and Rob, you do too, that we've put a lot of our personal investment into our people because
Helping
they
people.
are our people. After you leave here, whether you like it or not, you're part of the family. And we call you 2 weeks later, 2 months later, how you doing? How are things going? How are you evolving? Stacie, like you said, when you started getting, back in the day, you're getting this feedback and you're like, oh, that's not good. Okay. I need to figure that one out, and whatever that takes to do, you're invested.
That's integrity and that's ethics. Yeah. That's a lot of stuff that can't be taught. It's something that you actually experience to learn.
Right. I'm sorry if I don't finish like the things that I start. I try to. It's my ADD going out of control. I sort of trailing down on my own thing. So just tell me to stop me.
No, it's great. I love hearing all this because going back to what Stacie said earlier, I was like because one thing I'm writing questions down that as they come up and I think about things, but like she had mentioned like the self-harm scars, and I was like, dang. That's a super deep traumatic thing for a person, right? And not only on a personal level, but to be able to come in and find an artist that you can actually, because that's a whole different layer of vulnerability right there, right? Like to open yourself up and be like, show all these scars on your skin or whatever, and then have the courage to actually even talk about why you did that to yourself and what brought you to that point, and then to actually be able to go through the experience of covering it up and being able to kind of try to move past that trauma a little bit through that experience. That's super cool. I hadn't even, typically when you would mention like medical tattooing, you're just thinking of like the obvious stuff like areola tattooing or scar cover-ups, but not necessarily scar cover-ups from self-harm. That was kind of that was like a light bulb. I was like, wow, I never even thought about that. And then you said amputations, and I was like, dang, there's another one I hadn't even thought about. Like, that's crazy.
So we're doing like the Wounded Warrior Project right now with the nonprofit, where there's going to be the bike run. There's going to be a Harley motorcycle run for the Wounded Warriors to raise money. Because I have several guys contacting us. Hey, I have this shrapnel. I have this bullet hole. I have this. And, one guy had a hole through his leg. He's like, can you put a bullseye there? And I'm like, yes, we can. So we put a bullseye and a zipper down his leg. And he's so happy because he was so embarrassed about his scars that he didn't even want to go out in public because he was a combat veteran,
all the time.
A badass, and it's just like,
yeah,
it's just restoring confidence in the human psyche, number one.
Yeah.
And then also, self-harm scars are not only traumatizing for where they got to that point where they actually did that to themselves, but the fact is that there's trauma stuck in the skin there. There's a whole story. Every time they look at it or they go to hand in a job application, they have all these stigmatized scars all over, and the person's looking at them like, oh my gosh, can I hire them or not?
You're one
So
of them.
putting a beautiful landscape over it or whatever is going to change their confidence. It's going to make them more employable, and it's going to make them probably divert to a whole different aspect of life, because they're no longer going to want to hurt themselves in that spot, because now there's a beautiful tattoo there that they don't want to damage. Which I have, I'm not going to say names. Okay, a very close person to our family who, when they were about 14-ish, they were harming themselves, and I was like, don't do that. Start drawing on yourself. When you're 18, we're going to put art there. And that's what they did. So they stopped because of that excitement and the hope, you know? And now that person is 28 years old, and that person is tattooing. That person is amazing. But still, there's a lot of trauma that's in that soul, and it's childhood trauma. It's personal trauma. It's all the different kinds of trauma that people don't on a level think about every day, because they la through their life. A lot of people are silver spoon.
Hidden.
Yeah.
But it takes a toll.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I will tell you, you know, and I'm not saying this to be, but we got the acts of kindness, right? The big check, and it wasn't a lot of money, but it's the point that in Lane County, they chose us for the acts of kindness. And because there are so many tears that happen in our in our spaces, and they're all good. They're all healing. Well, you know,
it's healing, but it's traumatizing.
It's healing, but it's traumatizing, too. But it's releasing it. It's releasing it. Thank you. And you know, and once that closet door is open, skeletons can't rattle in there anymore, because guess what? The sun is shining in, and the door is open, and they can't. They just simply can't be in there anymore, right? So it's opening that door, really, you know, and healing. Let the healing take, you know, let the healing commence, right? And you know, a lot of people, the people that can't afford these things, which there are many, you know, or they'll take you to a certain point of your journey, all the way to the end, you know, Stacie, and then go.
That's cosmetic. We're not saving you. We're
sorry.
not. Yeah.
That's and you're like they're right at the brink of going through their journey and getting to the next step of their journey, and they get the door slammed in their face, and it's like,
we're like, here we are.
Resonance is a really important aspect of this, and not a lot of people resonate with trauma, because not a lot of people have really gone through it. I've been through, like, I've got a list of traumas that I'm like, okay, I can help these people because I've brought myself out of that cave, and I got my torch, and I can go back in and be like, this particular cave, you got to step left here and right here, and okay, I'm going to hand the torch to you, and you can help other people, because there is a journey, there's a grief process with trauma, and there's a lot of people out there right now. I wrote a book called Healing Tattoos a few years ago. It's almost sold out, but there's a lot of people out there now using this like healing tattoo thing kind of as a catchphrase. So when I started really getting into scar cover-ups back in the day, what I was finding was the emotional outlet. Like you're saying, the door was open, the light was shining on that, and a lot of people just felt safe around me because I knew what they had been through. And so they felt safe. So then the stories start flowing. And then, you know, I'm like, just let it out. Don't take it with you, because I don't want you to attach that story to this tattoo. That story was attached to your visible scars, but I don't want you to attach it to this tattoo. So now what we see is a lot of people out there that don't have any kind of resonance with them, don't realize how lucky they are that they haven't experienced these kind of traumas, and they're using it as like a catchphrase. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing right now. You know, Rob, I know you, in the email, I think you had said something about where tattooing has come. And that's kind of why I wanted to kind of be a provider of history. I've been around for a minute, and way over obsessive about tattooing, honestly. But it was Otzi. When Otzi was discovered, was right at the time that I started getting tattooed and drawing flash, and decided I wanted to be a tattoo artist. And when we saw Otzi on the news and he was tattooed and it used to be used as a therapeutic, I was like, boom, that's it. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. And I used to say Otzi is my co-pilot. Do you remember Paul Booth used to say Pontius is my co-pilot? I'm like, well, Otzi is my co-pilot. And And so when these people were falling apart in my chair, and I was like, oh my goodness, I feel overwhelmed by these emotions. I need to learn to heal whatever part of me is resonating with this emotion so that I can hold the space for this person instead of focusing on how it's triggering me. That
Right.
this person is telling me my own story basically back to me. And
That's
so that's when I started seeking out. That's when I started seeking. I became a Reiki master. I started taking active listening classes and really just investing myself in. I'm like a level 2 certified coach, and really just started to like explore my own things of what modalities have helped me. Now, how can I become a facilitator of this modality to help this person really feel empowered by this experience with me? And I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, you're coming to me for a tattoo, and I'll give you the most artistic, the most technical tattoo that I am capable of. I guarantee that. I will do my best. But that's not really why you're coming here, and that's not really what you're leaving with. Like there's a spiritual element of empowerment, a shared empowerment now that I can give show this person how all of those things that brought them to me are now their superpower and their strength, because I believe that trauma is an activation.
Yeah, that's wild. I could pull a lot of questions just from that alone, right? Because like, where has tattooing come versus where it's been? And this is a really interesting topic, because especially as we're looking at regulations and we're talking with like FDA people and regulators now a lot about the significance of tattooing and the culture of tattooing and how significant it is, especially in these types of relationships with clients. But I think there's a significant disconnect in the industry from artist to artist, right? Because I don't hear a ton of tattooing. To me, in my perception, is not really connecting on that level on a wide scale, right? You guys are in a pretty niche market, right? Like, you don't hear a lot of tattoo artists talking about the way they connect with their clients. They're telling the story. They're not even necessarily always telling the story about the significance of the tattoo that they've done.
Well,
Right.
you have your artists, you have your craftsmen, right? You have like, there's like different aspects of tattooing, and there's something kind of magical happens when you get all of that in one person, but we're not all meant for this. And I think like what I alluded to earlier was that a lot of people are using it as a catchphrase, especially since I started becoming more public about everything that I've been doing. And I've been a little bit pushy about it, to be honest, because women are being harmed, because I got botched nipple tattoos, and I really wanted to educate tattooists on the harm that can be caused. Because people that aren't resonating with that are pretending to. And so I think the biggest problem that I really see is a lack of authenticity. As there's so many artists, as we're oversaturated, everyone's trying to climb over top of each other, and I'm better than that person, and that person did this, but like not really just sitting with themselves and being like, what is my strength? Like, what did I come here to offer this industry, and how can I contribute to making it better? And so then we have the majority I see now of tattooing is kind of like almost akin to hairdressing.
Yes.
Well, don't you feel? Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
That's the exact reason why I reached out to you, Stacie, as well. I've had 2 huge meetings with the Oregon Health Authority and also with the Medicaid, Medicare authorities here in Oregon, because and I said it in the meeting, not just any run-of-the-mill tattoo artist should be doing this work, right? Oh my gosh, the state license guy was like, whoa, well, Oregon tattoo artists have 360 hours. And I went, okay, and let's just leave it at that. I don't want to go too deep into this because it's something I'm working on really hard. I've put a lot of my time into. I've already gotten, 4 insurance companies to recognize medical tattoos, and we are in network with them. And then I'm also working on Medicare, Medicaid, and I've also got self-harm scars as tattoo therapy covered. So it's a lot of work. I don't know if you can conceptualize how much work it's been, but when it comes down to it, not just any tattoo artist can be doing scar tissue.
And that's what Stacie was saying as well.
And then like what you just said, Stacie, trying to pretend like you have trauma when you've never been through the shit you've been through, the things I've been through. I was tattooing this lady one time, who was, she was abducted by a satanic occult.
Mhm.
They held her with a knife in her arm down so that they could violate her. And so when I was tattooing over that scar, and the moment I got into it, I had that transference of energy because I'm a Heyoka empath. I had to excuse myself for a second. I had to go literally viscerally let it out and then come back into it so that I didn't further traumatize her. And she and I hugged for about 15 minutes and I let her cry. I said, you know, you can talk about it if you'd like. And she just spilled the entire story that had been bottled up for over 20 years inside her soul, and the feeling, the sounds, the sights, the smells of everything. And not just anybody can handle that. That was a lot to swallow. It made me viscerally sick, and I collected myself. I went to the bathroom real quick and I came back and we nailed it, you know, but these are things that you just don't understand. And
Or even care. They don't even care.
Right. People
It's
don't
just-
care the way we care.
They say that they do. Well, you have these imposters.
Imposters.
Right?
Stacie talked about that.
One thing that's piggybacking just a little bit off of that, and I didn't know that I was an empath, 20 years ago or whatever. I didn't even know what the hell that meant or anything, right? But I knew that on every tattoo, I could literally tell you what, oh God, you're doing a portrait, and people, oh, he's getting to the nose. He's getting to the nose. Oh, please don't ruin the nose. And I look at them, I'm like, you all right? And they're like, oh yeah, it's great. And they're like, and I'm like, okay, cool. And please don't please don't mess. And I literally,
hear them.
I have to I got to go to the bathroom, put water on my face. Oh, go back out there. And, fine. They're like, oh my God, that's so awesome. I'm like, yeah, I know. Bye.
It takes a toll on us.
It made me it's helped develop what I'm known for, which is quick, and I'm very quick. I'm very fast at what I do, but with authenticity, and I wouldn't let speed, I wouldn't let speed ever be the consequence of having a bad tattoo.
Right.
But I just developed this speed because of having to deal with that mindset, and knowing, just knowing these things. I mean, hell, I'll be sitting there tattooing, and I'll start whistling or humming a song, right? And my tattoo client is, oh, I love that song. My grandma used to sing that song to me when I go to sleep, and I go and I go, oh, I've never heard that song before in my life. And they look at me, right? So I've had to really just kind of not say the stuff that's on my mind, because this is another conflict, is when do you know?
Right.
You let them bring these things up, but then in the same time, for them to let you in, right? Opening that door, like Stacie was saying, so that you can, okay, let's take the torch, let's go, and eventually, get through that tunnel so that they can do the same thing. It's like, when do you know, right? And so that can be kind of tough, but for the most part, I've throughout the years, they will divulge it to you. It's simply being a tattooer. The moment we start, and this, Rob, and all of us, you start tattooing, these people tell you the stories they've never wanted to tell anybody their entire lives. And why? I have no idea.
And with that comes such a great responsibility.
It really
as
does.
a practitioner.
It really does. When you leave, and and I've worked at parlors, or clients leave, and the first thing they do is, man, this guy, and they just talk out the side of their neck, and then they're taking their story that they just trusted this person with, divulge this information to, and then all of a sudden this person is now,
It's wrong.
It's
unethical.
Listen, I have been the brunt of this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just I'm resonating so hard with what you're saying, because a group of my own students who I shared about, try to help them understand what trauma is like this is what I represent the client. I lost my breasts, I lost my nipples, I lost my breast reconstruction. I've been through, that's where a lot of this trauma has come from. When I lost my reconstruction, I started hemorrhaging. I almost bled to death. They had emergency surgery, blood transfusions on standby. And that really messed with me, coming that close to death and like being rushed in for emergency blood transfusions. I'm like, I don't want other people's blood in me. Is this really what's happening in my life right now? And a group of my students, my own students that I poured my love into and said, this is what your clients are going through. I represent your client, have used my trauma against me, capitalized on that, said that I am mentally unstable. One girl said, I'm bipolar. I'm like, you can't diagnose me as, but bipolar has the exact same symptoms, because I did look into it. I take everything into like, maybe I am, maybe I do need to be on drugs, right? And it has the exact same symptoms as complicated grief, which would happen if you've had multiple traumatizing surgeries, and and so the danger of the people that are kind of faking it runs way further, because they'll happily poo-poo on someone who's been there and then turn around and say they're here to help others, but we don't want to help this person. Yes. We don't like this person. This person's mentally unstable. Mm-hmm. Like, how could you do that to someone? Anyway, I digress there.
We already got everything we wanted from you.
Right.
We already stole everything, right? We vampired you, and now you can go away so we can keep going down the road, and that's,
And you're right, Stacie. Trauma can look like a mental health thing, but trauma can represent as, in some people, hallucination even. In some people, it can be anger. In some people, it can be violent tendencies. And that's what I always talk about. Most of the problems we see out here in the streets, you can tie it back to childhood trauma, midlife trauma, surgical trauma, something.
About a little bit of love.
Yeah, just
instead of yelling at them and telling them what a piece of shit they are and yada yada, which is only going to do what? Take them down the rabbit hole even further. How about, hey man, you need a sandwich or something, like we do it all the time, and even if they are out there yelling and cussing, and I mean, I go out here, I show up and there's a guy in our garbage, just ripping things, just throwing it out, they're ripping things, and I pull up and they jump out, look at me, and start yelling, what the hell? And I went, hey man, look, whoa. I said, look, I don't care what you're doing in there. Can you just do me a favor? And can you put it, whatever you don't take, back into the garbage can for me? That's it. He's like, and then he just stopped right there, and like all of the anger and all of the craze just like melted off of him. And he was just like, yeah, I can do that. I'm like, right on, man. Thank you. Are you thirsty or something? You look like you need some water, right? And
empathy.
Right. And then he started going into, that he had lost his children and, his wife and started piling out, and I started giving him, advice and love that, hey man, look, I've been down that road, and I've seen the darkness down there, and I turn around and look at the building. I go, see this, man? You can do this. You can do it, but you can't do it when you're high on drugs. Okay. I'm like, yeah, you can't, it ain't gonna work. You gotta bottle, you gotta put that shit away. And if you want your kids, then do it. Go do it. Giving them a positive influence, versus a negative one. And I think those people that like to shower negativity, well, the problem is they themselves are that hurt individual that need.
I was one of your students, Stacie. And your story is so powerful and impactful during being educated that if people could just take from that alone and learn how to transcribe that into their healing art, it would be a lot better. Instead of competing with you or me or him or competing with each other, compete with themselves, try to get better every day.
Like we do.
Your competition is the person looking in the mirror.
Right.
And realize that if somebody divulges their trauma to you, that's sacred. And there's an opportunity for that sacredness to become healing. I respect you. I appreciate the hell out of you. Oh,
And I think
I can't hear you. You're on mute.
You're on mute. We can't hear you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, it was
I
super
think
cool. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think if you don't think like that, you shouldn't be in this craft.
Right.
You should be doing it. Put it down and go do something else, because this isn't for you. You know what I mean? This isn't get rich quick.
No.
This isn't, oh, look at all the money I can make, I want to be a tattoo. It's deeper than that. It always has been. I was talking to Michelle. I'm like, look, man, and I want to piggyback off what you were saying, Rob, about the industry and about these tycoons that are at the end of trying to isolate certain parts of our craft, that they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They're not a tattooer. The inks and the this and the that. Look, man, every drop of ink I have,
Don't even.
I make.
Yeah, don't even go there, people.
But right, it's like,
what's safe, what's not safe.
Where we came from, right? Where this craft, the taboo and the look, and all of a sudden you want to just shift that into regulation and take it off into the boxes and the squares, and you got to do this is the way it's got to. Give me an effing break, man. Look, thousands of years ago, the tribes would tattoo their faces and bodies to instill fear into the hearts of their enemies. So I mean, I don't know. It's just
I do agree with some regulatory, of course, for safety reasons. And as things develop over time and more education happens and we learn, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't use that because that can do this to the body. We didn't know that back then, but we do now. I understand those kinds of progressions. However, I think where we should focus our energy the most is the appropriate education practices, the appropriate pathways, and how to stop people from being further traumatized.
Yeah, I agree. What's that? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Rob. I keep cutting you off. I think because we're so far away, it like takes.
It's all good.
I'm just saying. I was just saying, I totally agree. Yeah, that's all.
No, I've got pretty strong feelings about regulations myself, but I'm actually an advocate for regulations, just because on the manufacturing side, I see all the shit products that are out here in the space, and it's we do need regulations. It's been far too long where we have not had regulation, and we've just been able to, anybody can just come in here. It's just like a tattoo artist. The guy that mows my yard can open up a damn tattoo studio. But I can't go into the beauty supply store and buy a pair of scissors. You know what I mean? So it's really ass backwards. It's crazy. But,
that's why I like products, because you're the guru on that. And that makes me happy when I see you're actually testing, you're trying, you're looking, you're educating not only the world, but yourself. And that's where it goes. That's where regulations need to be, is with education.
Yeah, and that's what really my platform is focused on anymore, and what I've really been trying to work with Sean more on is like the education piece, educating the artist on the products they're using, educating the artist on the questions that they should be asking the manufacturers of the products that they use. Because really the biggest problem I see is, for you as artists, anything that you're applying to your client or giving your client to walk out the door with for their aftercare, or bandages that you're using, coverings, anything from the start of the process to the end of the process, you are accepting a level of liability with the use of those products, so you as artists have to know exactly what you're using. You also, the consumer, your client, needs to be educated on what to ask the artists about their products they're using. What's in that ink, what's in that aftercare product. There could be things that I'm allergic to. I need to know these things, so I don't have an adverse reaction, especially if it comes to things like lidocaine products is a huge one for me, because that is a regulated product. But here in the tattoo space, you still got a shit ton of people out there pushing products that are over 5% lidocaine illegally, and the artist doesn't know any better, and neither does the client that's asking for it. They just don't want their tattoo to hurt, so they're going on Amazon and buying some
Right.
Dr. Numb shit, and they're bringing it to their artist, and their artist doesn't know any better. There are some artists that won't use that shit, but the majority of them are just like, sure, if you want it, I'll slather it on you. They don't understand the complications that can come with that.
I do feel like every problem that we're having, I do feel like every problem that we're seeing in the tattoo industry right now, well, first of all, that it's an industry because it was just a basement or like underground art when I was getting into it. But I think every problem that we're seeing right now comes down to a lack of education. And those two go hand in hand. Regulations and education is just making sure that people are informed. If you go to school for 1.5 years to cut hair, and you can learn how to tattoo online. No, that's not the way it's happening. This is not the way the future, this is not the way that the future is going to work out for us.
Well, I truly believe that.
For real.
I truly believe this profession is just as important as a doctor or a lawyer. You know, I'm not saying you got to go to school for 8 years to be a tattoo artist, but I strongly believe that you should have some kind of bare minimum accredited certification, if not an actual degree. Like, and that's a very controversial topic. I mean, there's a lot of people that will poo-poo on me even saying that, but I just honestly feel that way. I mean, why do I have to have a license to go buy a pair of scissors? But, you know, I can go on Amazon and pretty much buy anything I want to do a tattoo without anybody checking my credentials or what my experience level is or anything. And hell, if you go on TikTok nowadays, it's all over the place. You see people tattooing in their freaking living rooms with no gloves on still today in 2025. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
We work so hard. Our generation works so hard to bring tattooing out of that gutter. I hate to see it go back into it.
But it's on education, just like what you said.
I want to say
People chasing fast money.
Yes, of course. And here's the thing, you know, when we started tattooing, and I will say, you know, we're talking, you know, 20, 30 gap, okay? The old tattooers, okay, it was regulated, and it was regulated in a way of shamanism, really, you know, that regulated, you know, you literally, I had to take out garbage in my tattoo shop for 1 year before I could even think about touching a machine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then and then I started making needles and jigs and, you know what I mean? And then it was like, okay, we'll see what you can do. You know what I mean? You know, they kept it regulated. You know, you couldn't just jump in there and start, you know, and it was that old school efficacy that kept things the way that they were and are, and respectful.
Right.
And, or, you know, I mean, hell, I know some people, man, they're missing fingers because they started tattooing too soon.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that.
Some
Yeah.
flesh missing.
Yeah.
I know people got chunks of flesh missing because they tattooed a machine on their ass
Before they were allowed to, right?
You know what I mean? Right. So we kept ourselves in check, and you know, so that's a thing that's disappeared and is disappearing, I should say, because we're being weeded out. You know that. So you're right, Rob, and Steve. We need to come to the realization that this is the way of the new world, right? I get that. You know, that door is shut, unfortunately. We can still promote it as tattooers and the people who apprentice under us, because that's another thing, right? How did you learn how to be an artist? You apprenticed underneath a tattoo artist that was pretty phenomenal and awesome, that taught you the way.
It's important.
Of course.
This is the same time he was apprenticing as a tattooer, I was a level 2 RN apprentice. So, I mean, even in nursing, you have many levels of apprenticeships you have to go through, you know, even beyond taking your NCLEX and being a licensed nurse, you still have to be level apprentice. Then you go journey, then you go up, you know, you work your way up that totem pole, and it's all related to safety and to helping other people with whatever that craft may be. I was cracking chests and massaging hearts, you know, but apprenticeships are super important to me.
It's gone to the wayside, and that's the thing. And I want to piggyback off what you were saying, Rob, is that, well, you go to, right, it should be almost as much as getting a degree as a doctor, right? Or a nurse,
not,
right?
Yeah.
And because of, and not that you have to spend, see, that's the
Nurses have $2,000.
Okay. You got to spend 15 G's to go to a class in a school to learn
360 hours.
Diseases of the blood and skin, 360 hours, 15 G's out the window, and you can't even tattoo a stick man when you get your degree. And then they go and they open up their shops and start botching people off the get, you know, and it's ruining our industry, you know, because these people, I see them at, you know, Bimart, whatever, and I'm going, God, what the hell happened? And they're like, oh God, I'll never let anybody touch me with a damn tattoo machine ever again. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, look, I can help you. You know, I have to talk them in to, you know, to getting, because in their mind, they just got, you know.
It all boils back to regulation, and it is regulation on the level that needs to be regulated. And Rob, I'm gonna say with you, I see the lidocaines being misused so much, and not understanding that people have underlying health conditions that actually interact with these medications because they're drugs, right? So if somebody has arrhythmias, or if they are a person with AFib, why would you put something that has epinephrine on an open wound? You're gonna set them up for a heart attack.
They don't even know they could have a heart attack in the chair.
Exactly.
Some water.
Yeah, and
I didn't know that though. Like, I didn't know that until I joined the board of the APT, and it came up in conversation there. I didn't know that. Nobody taught me. I was just like, we need to all get on the same page. For what tattoo artists need to say, like, yeah. And in Oregon, you know, with all of now there's 1 million tattoo schools, and people are probably leaving there and opening their own tattoo school. And that's why the old timers in the industry are against this, because it is a real threat, and we don't want to limit anything, but we might have to put a cap on, there's only this many licenses per year, because there simply isn't enough room to go around. So people aren't going to be able to afford to open a shop. They'll be back in the basement or the living room, as you say. So it really needs to be done responsibly, but now is the time. Like I said at the beginning, like, we're in an evolutionary pivoting point in tattooing, and now is the time to do that. And if we don't get together and get on the same page and do this ethically and responsibly, the future of tattooing, I think we're going to lose everything that was beautiful about it. So we just got to talk more. We got to get along. We got to not be nattering at each other and talking behind each other's backs. And we have to just say, like, we have this problem, we need a solution, and I'm sure that we can find one that we all agree on, because we all care about this art form that we are so blessed to make a living in.
And also, we all need to have high ethics, you know, and integrity, and be respectful of one another, especially if we're leading a charge or leading something into greatness. We need to love one another, you know, and not try to sweep the other person under the rug, because we all have something to contribute to this. We're all contributors to this.
It's an issue, though, you know, the tattooers have had since as long as I can, you know, the rivalry, you know, this, you know, of tattooers, you know, when the reality of it is, yeah, we need to come together. How are we going to come together and create these, you know, these stepping platforms that, you know, and when everybody's just, you know, constantly smashing heads. And Michelle and I put it out there pretty, and you know this, Stacie, it's like, look, I don't have any competition. You know what? You know, I've never heard my name talked about in this town in a bad way. Why? Because guess what? I really don't fucking care. Right. And if I don't care what you're saying about me, then why would you talk about me? What are you going to say? Oh man, look at you, man. Oh, he does pretty damn good tattoos. What are you going? So we can all be on the same page and be like, hey, you know, let's come together and figure this out. Not, you know, when you're constantly, I mean, I have some really good friends that were in this industry for 20 years that just said, you know what, fuck this, I'm out of here. You know,
we don't have high school drama
and gave up their, you know, their passion and their career because of the high school drama. right?
Mhm.
Because of the labeling and then going around town, oh, look at this right? Creating, these obstacles that are, it's to the point where you're just like, fuck it, I'm out of here.
What I like
what
to
mean?
do, and this is going to probably sound funny, but when I'm in these groups that are local and we see somebody post their tattoo, oh, I got this horrible tattoo from so and so, yada yada yada, I actually will like call the artist and be like, hey, let's team up, let's do something about this. I might know how to fix that, and if I don't, well, Ian could probably help you, and so we come together and try to lift up other artists in this town, because there are some phenomenal artists, and there are also some brand new babies out of school that are doing mistakes that they don't understand even because they don't have appropriate education.
Yep.
I make mistakes.
Because like you said, Stacie, you have these people who go to school, they get their degree, and then they open up their own schools because they're like, oh man, look at, I had to pay 15 G's. Everybody in that class was 15 and 15 and 15. Now we can do this, 60-day class, right? And make, $250,000. What do you think, Jimmy? Oh, hell yeah, man. And then, so now you got these tattooers that aren't tattooers. They don't even know what the hell they're doing. And they're running schools. Right. So it's definitely a problem.
And they're not investing whatever they make back into the craft. And I think that's super important. Give more than you take. Put your money back into the craft, put your money back into helping other people. And so I'm going to bring this back around. Varga Medical Art, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're not taking money. We're on the board of directors. We're not taking any funds from it. We're actually putting our money into it to help people, because there's so many people walking around who are suffering in silence with their burns, with their vitiligo, with their cleft lips, with their, I can list a lot for you, Rob. There's so much that Ian and I have done pro bono through the nonprofit just to help people have that confidence to bring love back into the community and to bring that sense of community into their life, because they've been isolating, or because they're embarrassed, or because their husband left them because they lost their nipples, they lost their breasts. There's so many things about that. We can get down into the arguing and the bullshit that goes behind the scenes with the tattoo industry and the other artists, but I don't even want to focus on that. I want love. I want to bring love to the industry. I want to see people love each other, not talk shit about each other. And if you want to learn something, come ask me. And if I don't know, I know other people that do know.
And we'll figure it out one way or another. That's the thing. If you can't afford it, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Come on down. You know what I'm saying? And we'll see what we can do, whether it's, getting you financed, which we do. We finance tattoos, right? So we have a financer, which is, I've never heard of before.
Yeah. Just do whatever it takes to help.
Whatever it takes, right? If that doesn't work, we'll find this. If that doesn't work, hey, you know what? I'll chalk it up or something. You know what I mean?
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Business of Tattooing. Now, let's talk some real business. You're already using Electrum products. You're already tagging Electrum products because you love Electrum products. But why aren't you getting paid for using and tagging Electrum products? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because you haven't signed up to Electrum Insiders yet. But now you can, and it's real easy. Just scan this QR code on your screen or go to electrumsupply.net today to learn about Electrum Insiders and how you can earn cold hard cash for doing what you're already doing. We want to thank you at Electrum for using our products, so we created the Electrum Insiders program exclusively for artists just like you. So don't hesitate. Get on over to electrumsupply.net today and start earning money for the content that you're already creating. Now, let's get back to this week's episode. Yeah, the biggest thing in all this right now, kind of going back to what Stacie was talking about, the biggest thing that I've seen is really what really stands out to me is just the energy in the room, right? Like on a broad scale in the tattoo industry, I'm talking about as a whole, right? And Stacie, this is why I think, in my opinion, why we struggle as an industry to make that massive amount of progress that we need to make with regulations and unity is because of the energy that we all have and the passion that we have around whatever's important to us individually, trying to separate our ego from the agenda, right? Like that's the hard part. If we just focus on the agenda, which is trying to protect the integrity of our craft and trying to keep the bullshitters out of the space from ruining the space for the ones that genuinely have invested, you know, their whole entire lives into this trade and what we're passionate about, then we can actually start to accomplish things. And that's why I'm thankful for you know, having guests like you on the podcast to be able to bring these things to light, because even just listening to you guys talk, it's evident that you have a high level of energy and passion around your specialty and your expertise that you deal with every day and the people and your clients. And you know, that's not necessarily going to resonate with everybody else in the industry. So when you come in a room and you try to accomplish a common goal, sometimes those things typically get in the way and people just stop on that point because they're like, wait a minute, oh, that doesn't make any sense, or what, that's stupid, or whatever their feelings are around something. And then we just end up taking 2 steps backwards again. So it's like, I don't think any of us quite have figured out how to get around that yet. And I think that's been the biggest challenge for us all as an industry. And so I'm kind of curious to know, like, Stacie, especially, you know, what are your thoughts on that, especially as you're so involved with like APT, AFDO and those kind of groups. And you probably see a lot of that on a regular basis from a lot of different artists with a lot of different perspectives and opinions on things.
And everybody wants to help, right? We're all just trying to contribute a little bit. We're all just saying, like, this is what I've seen. How can it help this bigger picture? And we do, you know, artists, like, we're nonconformists. Like, we're not gonna play by the rules. We make our own rules and we're proud of it or whatever. But in this particular case, we just have to get on the same page. But that's why I'm so thankful for organizations like the APT, which is the Alliance of Professional Tattooists. It's been around since 1992. I've been a member on and off since about 2003. And I'm really grateful to have been able to be on the board and see the way that it's run. And I'm, you know, not allowed to talk about a lot of that, but I will say this: they are streamlined and focused. They are second the motion. We're putting the motion down. Please add this to the next agenda. What needs to be, I don't know if that's important enough to be covered right now. We really need to focus on this. And they do a really good job of just keeping things focused. And what we really need for focus, from what I believe that I learned, is simplifying the problem, simplifying the solution. It's really easy to figure this out. We can all agree on the problem is there's people tattooing that haven't been trained properly. It's easy to identify. Okay, so what's the solution? Well, the solution's even easier. Encourage better training. And nobody wants to be the rule maker, because then you're going to inspire a bunch of rule breakers, and then that leads to even more division and chaos. So I think what we really need to do is just simplify our goals so we can have these expansive conversations, like everything that Michelle and Ian are saying right now. That's expansive. We're blanketing. Here's all the problems. Here's the specifics. Here's the details that support this being a problem. Okay, yep, that makes sense. Now let's streamline that, simplify it, and say, okay, the problem is people are getting into this without proper training. And I believe that the industry deserves more respect than that. So if people really want to make change, get involved with the APT, get involved with AFDO, get involved with these communities. NEHA's a good one to follow along with too, right? NEHA's doing some great things. The goals of the APT and the goals of AFDO and the goals of NEHA are different facets of the industry. And so when we get involved with these and we see, okay, this is what NEHA is doing, this is what AFDO is doing, this is what the APT is doing, they're all parallel and they're all needed. And when we bring those 3 together and we're all like, yeah, it's really easy to see these problems, it's really easy to create a solution. And when we bring these things together, then we can inspire the change that's really needed to go forward ethically. And honoring the values of this ancient craft that we're so blessed to be in. This is the coolest job in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and right, and so these regulators, right? That's what I think 100% what you're saying is absolutely correct, Stacie. And yes, we need to simplify it, and simply that yes, there are people that are doing things that they don't know what they're doing, and they just keep doing them because it's a paycheck. But it's a paycheck based on the fact that they believe they put the paycheck in so that they deserve it. So, where is that isolating that problem is the schools, right? What are you learning? What is it that you're learning? What are, like Michelle said, the hours, right? Oh, well, we got, we need 360 hours.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? I did 360 hours in my sleep last month. Tattoo, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing. And, so making, so yes, how do we get in to making sure that when these people, and yes, really it's going to the right school. It's making sure that every it's all the same, right? Across the board, right? And whatever that is, however that word looks, Stacie, your
ART is amazing.
ART, right? And your curriculum, and making sure that curriculum is standard across the board.
Right.
It's got to be the same, period, all the way across. And it has to be done with people that know this craft, that have put the hours in when it comes to the paramedical side and the efficacy side. And like you said, Rob, we are surgeons. Okay, we're breaking into the blood, the body, man.
The body.
This is I tell people all the time, tattooing is a medical application.
It is.
Period. And the moment you start breaking into that, yeah, man, you have a responsibility, and that responsibility is no less than of a nurse who's putting an IV in your arm when you go to the hospital.
Do no harm.
So making sure that across the board that your curriculum is the same.
It's a standard of care.
But it's got to be the same. And whatever that looks like, Viper, ART, combining those things together, other
specialty education.
We're not trying to keep this to ourselves. And that's another big thing I want to say, is that this isn't a selfish, it's selfless.
Yes.
And a lot of these people, oh well, I want mine. It's my product. It's my thing. I want it. Dude, no, this is a combination of all of us coming together to figure out the best way. And yes, I think that the people who need to be doing this are the people that have been in this industry for a very long time.
Body artists.
And artists, and those of us who have put the time in of study. Stacie, Rob, you don't just make inks, man. You're trying to make the best inks on the planet, and you don't make the best inks on the planet because you don't know how the chemical combination and compound and how that affects the human body at a cellular level, and all of these things, right? So
it's like 2 days ago when he was tattooing, and I'm coming in with different blacks and just explaining the composition of why this carbon is different from this carbon, and how any molecules are this. And I'm the nerd over here going, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And that's what I love about you, Rob. You're the same way. All the geek stuff, and I like it.
Well, and her knowledge has brought me out of the primordial ooze, a lot of, the ancient, us old school tattooers that, I throw some fucking, acid in there and just, you know what I mean? Well, throw some Folgers coffee in there, and we'll, I need a little bit more, But I mean, look, they didn't turn out that bad. But just bringing us out of that, yes, that and knowledge into it,
Yeah. A lot of people use catchy, gimmicky words in their marketing and stuff, but like I use words like premium, and I use gold standard, and I've trademarked those words because those words to me truly mean something. Like I want my products to be premium. I want my products to always evolve and be better and better and better. And, I'm heavily involved on the ink side now that I've started manufacturing ink. That's pretty much between ink and regulatory, that's pretty much where 100% of my time is at, you know. I'm not even all that involved in the supply side of the business so much anymore. My family's kind of running that now, and my daughter and my business partner and stuff. But you know, on the ink side of things, I mean, we're way down deep in a rabbit hole on tattoo inks right now, you know, especially as it pertains to the regulations, and really just from an educating me standpoint, educating regulators standpoint, and really trying to educate one another on what those ingredients are, what's in those ingredients, where they come from. And not only that, but how do we, are there ways that we can make better tattoo inks? You know, like, are there ingredients that we could be using that are better than the ingredients that we're using today to evolve tattoo ink to the next level? That's what I feel like really separates people that care from people that are just here to make money, you know. And you can tell it, like, and I don't need to say any names or anything like that. It's never my platform, you know. I even said this in the AFTO conference, you know, like, it shouldn't be, and kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about in regards to trying to remove ego from processes, is like, I don't need to come in a room and try to upsell my products. I don't need to come into a room and try to tear other people's products down. All I have to do is just produce good products, and those will speak for themselves. But you can tell the ones that don't care, because they're the ones that aren't here by our sides as manufacturers trying to fight that fight. You know what I mean? So like that, it's evident in that. And the same thing applies to the tattoo art side of things. You can tell the artists that are here for the right reasons versus the ones that are here for the wrong reasons, you know? It's the evidence is there. And going back to lidocaine products, for example, from a consumer standpoint, you know, from a person that wants to get a lidocaine product used on them, or even from an artist that's using lidocaine products, go to a tattoo convention where products are being sold and walk up to a booth that's selling a lidocaine product and just start asking them products about lidocaine. You're going to know immediately whether or not they're educated even on what lidocaine is, because you can't bullshit your way around lidocaine. You either know what that drug does or you don't. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, because I do it, 9 out of 10 of those people don't know shit about lidocaine products. They're just there trying to get your $20, period. They don't care what's in that product.
Yep. They don't care if there's going to be a chemical burn.
There's that need for education again, my friends. And I like what you said about products, because we were talking about, like, I'm going to do a shameless plug, especially because you just said it's stupid too. We were talking about self-harm scars earlier. I actually created a practice skin with self-harm scars on it, so that people can practice on scar tissue without harming the people.
Yeah, I'd like to. I want to see that. I would love to play around with that.
I'll send you one. It's
Grabbing right. We have a lot of we have a lot of Stacie's. Michelle has has used all of Stacie's products, and I've used Stacie's products. All her pigments, that have been gone through developments and changes over the years. She is absolutely her pigments. When it comes to the paramedical side, are were number one to me. They're awesome, Stacie. So.
Yeah, she's got great brains. So this is what I love about Stacie. She comes up with a concept. She finds the right manufacturer, the right people, and she makes practice skins for her curriculum where you can actually tattoo self-harm scars and learn the composition. And it actually feels so much like it when you're tattooing on these fake skins, so much so that her nipples, like this skin has got pores, it's got all the different elements of real skin, and it feels like it when you stretch it.
Pretty good.
It's good. This is a good practice skin.
I want to back myself up a little bit,
little nipple.
Because the ones that I said, though, and the difference. Yes, the difference, right? She's put in the time to find the people for the texture and the pores and things.
Yeah,
not the of course, and not the stuff that you could buy. $20 online, you get a stack of 50. Yeah,
all the skin.
All this is rubber ran through a cheese grater.
Right.
And they're just
doing here. But stop, EAIN. No,
that's not what you're doing.
No, but we
That's
can't
not
do
what
that.
you
We
do.
can't like compare, right? Like that's not the way to unity.
No, we're not
here.
comparing.
I'm just saying.
We're not comparing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. We have to practice what we preach. We have to practice what we preach.
And I am. I'm just saying the obvious here. Is all.
Yeah.
So these products are amazing. I think that
Skin tone.
that
everything.
comes down to the passion behind it and the education and the experience and the time and the effort that she's put into the curriculum and the practice materials for people who want to learn.
Yeah, that's what I was
You
saying.
know,
Michelle, thank you. I really appreciate the support, but like that's not what this podcast is about.
It's okay.
Stay focused.
get on my ADHD. It's okay.
It's all good. It's all good. Stacie, tell me a little bit about your schooling and like what what really in your mind sets you apart in the education field.
Well, I don't know. It all came from, I didn't really want to be an educator, leader, any of this stuff. But when I lost my breast, I lost my mother. And when I was in the hospital after my own mastectomy, I had a preventative mastectomy. I didn't have cancer trauma, but I do have mastectomy trauma, making it a little bit easier for me to talk about mastectomy trauma. I think if I had cancer trauma, it would be a little bit too much. It would just be a little bit too hard. So I had a preventative mastectomy. I had a mass. We have BRCA1, the gene that Angelina Jolie has. So I was in the hospital after just wishing that my mom could be there. And of course, she passed away years before. So I was just thinking about like, what have I learned in tattooing? Because I just have this deep love for our craft. And I just feel called to do this. I'm like, man, I know how to draw. I've won awards for my realism. If I'm award winning in this, I'm already proven. I've already bring the cards to the table that need to be there, and I've been tattooing scars for this long, and I know what it's like to look in the mirror with all those drains coming out of you, and the growth, the trauma of the amputation itself. So I was like, something needs to be done here. I think I can do it. I think I could do it. And I just started thinking about like, how, what can I do? So the first thing that I did was started showing people how to create the optical illusion. And I wrote a book in order to do that. And I was like, I just need to have a conversation with everyone interested in what I have to say. And I sold out 9 editions of that book. So it went far. It was probably ended up being pretty influential, and realism being a staple now in areola tattooing, where it wasn't really before. There was a couple of people that were doing it. Brian Everett was doing some really great areola tattooing, and there was a few people that were doing it, but nobody was sharing the old school, like what it takes. And so I wrote that book, and out of that book, I had made nipple drawings in the book, of course, to teach the realism aspect of it. And then I was like, then I had to make them digital. I did it all myself. So when I made them digital, I made temporary tattoos out of them. So I'm like, here we are, the first realistic temporary areola tattoos. So breast cancer survivors can try them on, or to help them get through the emotional aspect of waiting for their scars to heal, which is really an intense process. That's like intense every day, but you just have to learn to subdue it. So that takes another toll mentally. And then what did we do after that? Then I was like really uppity about permanent pigments because there weren't any. And so I started working with Sam, my protege, who does the skins. And I was like, I called Sean Brown. I think I talked to him in like 2013 or something. I talked to John Montgomery. I just called every pigment company that I trusted, phoned them up directly and said, are you guys interested in doing this? I think there's a need for it. And they didn't see the need for it. So Sam really wanted to get involved. Stacie-Rae, she really wanted to get involved. So I was like, solve the pigment problem and you are in. And she called World Famous, and they were the only ones who were willing to take a chance on this concept of permanent areola colors. And it baffled me that the other pigment companies at the time didn't see a need for it, but there really isn't that big of a market. There wasn't anyway then. And so the Pink Ribbon series was born. It has Stacie-Rae written across it. And actually I was just staying with her the last few days. So we've reconnected, and we're working on a new thing coming out. So she does the skins and I just designed them, and she made the scars a different density than the rest of the skin on the earlier ones. which is really time consuming, but we're like, but it will teach people, we can help people be better. We can help people be better. That's all we cared about. We can help people be better. How cool is this? So we get people. And then I worked with Tat Soul. So then we came up with the skins. And then Tat Soul invited me to do a set of needles with them. And so we created the world's first areola/scar needle groupings out of needles that they already had, because I'm like, it's unsafe to use liners and scar tissue. It can have a real slicey kind of outcome. And I learned that the hard way. So it was really nice going to Tat Soul's headquarters and having a board meeting with all of the people and on the whiteboard, and I'm like, blah, 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 this, scar tissue, do. And they're all like taking notes. They're like, man, like I had a lot of ideas to share. So we did 2 boxes, which are now, that was a signature series, are now sold out. And then Eternal said, do you want to do areola pigments? I said, heck yeah, because Eternal's really been the pigments that I've loved the most during my career. And I love seeing 20-year-old tattoos that I did with Eternal that the colors haven't really changed. And it's really nice to have that trust and have that distance in time. So then we did the pink, or the new areola set with Ever After, which is with Eternal. And I was really happy with that because I matched all the new nipple back colors to the colors in the set, so people can actually try on the colors that are in the pigments. And Sean Brown created, he did a little blue one and a little purple kind of color for capillaries and veins, like vascular features that can make it onto the areola. And we just had a great time creating all these things. So in all of that, what I saw was the biggest thing was the lack of education. So I reached out to Brian Everett because I knew he was getting into education a little bit. And I was like, whatever you guys are doing down there, if you're interested, I would love to kind of work together and maybe duplicate it in Canada and like whatever appropriate boundaries we create between each other. But I think it's time for some real education around this. And then when I got my areolas, so I waited for my first class that I taught, and I got my areolas tattooed in that class by one of the students, and she completely overworked me. So I received, unfortunately, I've had to learn by being the brunt of the worst case scenario. It happens sometimes. I destroy and uncreate that contract because I would like to get the best case scenarios going forward. It's like a high and low kind of industry evolution is. And so that really hurt me, because now I understood what my clients have been through who needed their areola tattoos touched up. And nobody else has been in that position. Nobody else has gained that perspective. So I was like, between all of the scar tissue, and sometimes I joke around that even if I tell you what not to do in scar tissue, that alone is worth the price of admission, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And I have an opportunity to make it up for the people that I harmed on my own journey. And so education has become number one for me. And so I created this because they were doing like 2 one-day training, 2-day trainings. I'm like, you cannot learn this in 1 or 2 days. There's no way you can do this ethically. And now people are offering more mentorship. So the industry is following my lead in everything that I do. So at least we know, like, that makes sense. It makes sense. If other people are doing it too, then that must be that simple solution that we can get on board with. But the competition aspect really has to be removed from that. You gotta, like, and when I started tattooing in the 90s, we really paid a lot of respect to those who paved the way and came before us. And so I just wish that the industry now was doing the same. I'm like, I had to learn this stuff the hard way. I sat alone in that hospital room. And you guys didn't. And be grateful for that and give credit where credit is due, you know?
Yeah.
So I just kind of tried to solve all of those problems, package it up in a nice little thing, which is what ART is. And I love it. And I'm so excited about it. And the competition that I've inspired has been the unfortunate downside of that. But still, we prevail and still trying to create the unity that this industry really needs.
I look at it as a side effect. It's something that will go away. We're gonna help.
Yeah, I really feel like listening to you guys talk, it makes me wonder why, because there's a lot of presenters at AFDO, and I think the body art, from what I just learned, I think the body art committee's been part of AFDO for like 13 years now. So I don't I don't exactly know what all's been discussed in those meetings over 13 years or who's all presented on what, but I feel like this part of tattooing should definitely be kind of at the forefront of these regulatory discussions, you know, because to me, regulators aren't our enemies. They're here trying to learn about our industry and they want to learn from us. You know, they're not trying to draw their own conclusions. So I'm grateful for that. I think if we don't come together relatively soon, that they will be forced to draw their own conclusions.
Right.
And that's not necessarily going to be super beneficial for us. But hearing you guys talk about, you know, the trauma side of, and the healing side of tattooing, I think that's super important for regulators to hear. And I'm just curious to know, Stacie, have you had these discussions with regulators? Have you talked about this part of tattooing with regulators?
This is my message all the time. I do stay focused on this one message. This is my realm of expertise. I am the subject matter expert on this particular topic because I've been there myself on both sides of that needle. So when I gave a presentation at AFTO in 2021, I believe, in Phoenix, I was speaking to this, but I didn't really know my audience. If I could go back and do it again, I would definitely do it differently. I feel like I didn't do the best job that I could, but we're always like that, right? And we're always hard on ourselves. But I didn't really understand the audience. I didn't really understand where they were at. And so they all came up and asking me questions and so excited to talk to me about this healing aspect of it. I was like, you guys just really need to focus on standardizing health inspections for tattoo studios, because that's what they were working on 4 years ago. That was kind of, they were trying to get on the same page there, because nobody wants to come out and be like, do it this way, because they're going to be targeted for being the jerk that's telling them what to do, bossing them around like I have been, because I've been a little pushy about it, right? So passionate, yeah. Anger, passion, tomato, tomato. The regulators, so where it came down to what I believed AFTO needed to do, and I've been vocal in the meetings about this, was at least make sure that online training is not given the same respect that in-person training is. And that's a conflict of interest for me to say that, because I own an online education platform and I run that. But I know what can be taught online and what can't be taught online. And so I was really just trying to make sure that that was at least in the guidelines, that if this person says they have online certificates, those are not as respectable as in-person certificates. And everything comes back to education. Here we are coming back to education. So here's how I feel about it. We have a hierarchy, right? Like the whole world kind of runs on this pyramid idea of all of us little people at the bottom and the couple guys at the top that are like doling out the rules. But we really need to have a round table. We need to have a meritocracy, like a merit-based, like if I'm the subject matter expert for areola tattooing, which I believe I am, then I can kind of represent that aspect, and this person represents pigment regulation, and this person represents the PMU world or whatever, and this person represents manufacturing, and we can sit at that table and with all of our different perspectives say like what really needs to be done here.
Yep, I agree.
Right. And then you know, another question I have for you guys too is that, Ian, you said it a few times during this discussion. You refer to tattooing as a medical procedure, and one of the big controversies in regulatory talk right now is the injection term as it pertains to tattooing. You know, so a lot of people on our side are trying to get that injection term removed from the language because of the implications it has and the restrictions it puts on the product, specifically tattoo ink. You know, how do you guys feel about that injection term, and how I guess that's the question. How do you feel about the term injection related to tattooing?
I would remove it. I would want to remove it because it's not injection, it's application. Injection is when you're going to go subdermal. Okay. You're going to go below the skin. I don't think it should be even in the language with tattooing. It's an application of ink, and the layer of the skin that it's going to is implemented in a certain way. It's not an injection. I
concur. And I've said this for years to everyone that says it Wrong. Number one, these are not needles. Oh, what do you? Oh, you go to give blood or get your blood taken. Oh, well, look at you. You're all tattooed up. This should be nothing for you. Look at all the needles that have been. I have to constantly tell them that the tattoo they're not needles.
It's a needle, but not the kind for that.
Excuse me. They are razor blades. Okay, that are slicing openings into your skin. They're baby razor blades. They're not, for the term, needles, right? So if you bring that to the top of the little pyramid of these guys trying to, tell you about needles and we can't do it because it's a needle. Well, check it out. You're not it's not an injecting. You're not injecting from a needle base. You're literally slicing the skin, and there's a lot of. Right.
Depositing. There's the word I've been trying to think this whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, you got, you could absolutely. There are tattoos that they slice your skin. They put in Japan. They put the ink and they rub it into the cuts, and that's how you get the tattoo. So it's
a good point.
Yeah, I would not call it injection.
Yeah, it's not what it is. So bring that to the table, saying, "Hey, you're trying to tomato, but you're trying to say potato and carrot."
Right.
It's completely not the same thing. So it's not even close, right? So bringing that to them and saying, "Hey, look, you guys are trying to do something that is not, it's not, it's not even the same ballpark." You know what I mean? So
yeah.
With the right people saying.
Yeah, Stacie, from your vantage point, how easy do you think it is to remove that terminology from the language?
Well, I've been in these conversations too, so I do understand I believe injection is it's easy to define, and tattooing cannot fall under that. It's too easy to define for them to try to include tattooing in it. My personal outlook, but I have been in those conversations with the struggle of trying to get the regulatory forces to see it the same way, and I don't understand. And I think it comes back to education. If they don't understand what tattooing is, then maybe we need to educate them, and then they'll see why injection isn't the proper terminology.
Yeah, it seems like a battle that's been being fought for a really long time. So it's one of those areas where I sit back and because I agree with you guys 100% on all points made, but it just makes me wonder, even we just saw that video, Sean loves to show that video of the ballistic gel where the tattoo needle goes in slow motion, and you can see that the ink doesn't get deposited when the needle goes into the skin. The needle comes out of the skin, and then the ink goes into the opening that the needle made. So it's really strange to me why it's so difficult, why that's such an uphill battle for our industry to get that language clarified, because it's like a ripple effect thing, right? There's so much that hinges on that terminology alone that it's like, man, why can't we just get this thing crossed off the list,
Yeah, it really should, because and once again, go back to what Stacie's saying, education. So you need to come back and educate these people in charge, so that they know, look, right? It's pretty simple stuff here. But I think a lot of it is that power struggle, right? So they want to be in control. They want to have the power, and if they can use these modalities that most tattooers, because they're not educated, right? And they can't come into this conversation and be like we are, which is knowing that it's not an injection, knowing how the ink comes into the body, right? Watching that video, whatnot. So to educate, number one, tattooers, in the beginning, so that they can actually stand with ground with what we're saying, and it would be a much easier it wouldn't be a battle. It would be just like, you're coughing up something that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
So
it's like the Oregon laws, rules and laws, define tattoo. It's the insertion by whatever means, the insertion of a dye or a pigment into the reticular layer of skin, leaving an indelible mark. That's one of the test questions, right? So tattoo can be done by many means. You can go cut yourself right now on the sidewalk and stick your elbow into some ink, and it's going to stay there.
I was going to say,
It's gonna keep
Yeah.
Technically, right?
Technically.
Yeah.
No, it would. That's another good point. You know, I don't think that's the thing. I don't think we peel the layer back enough to really kind of say, you know, all these different things. Because even like looking at somebody, I think maybe it was Brian Everett had a picture of they just recently found this somewhere in some anthropology kind of whatever, but there was a stick that had two cactus needles attached to it, and there were traces of some pigment on the tips of these cactus needles that was from fucking years and years and years and years and years ago, you know. And so it's like, you can't say that even today when you like look at the Japanese tattooing where they're tapping on that stick and tattooing like that, you know, that's not injecting, right? Not at all. That would never qualify as an injection, even under any. Yeah. So it's like, how did it become an injection all of a sudden when we started using tattoo machines? You know,
it didn't.
Right.
It's
so I'm saying when did that terminology? When did that definition get applied to the regulatory language?
I don't know.
That's a good question, Rob. It's a good question.
Yeah. So that's just sorry. It's just kind of one of those things. Well, I just think it's one of those things that's really holding our industry back, is that well, you know, uneducated language. And so, you know, I just wonder how we get around that kind of stuff. You know, let's go back to the trauma side of things and the connections with clients, you know, and the fact that we have so many non-genuine artists out doing the kind of stuff that you guys are doing on a legitimate basis. What message would you have for a client that's, you know, dealing with trauma in their lives and that are seeking the right kind of artist to do, you know, medical tattooing on them? What message would you give to a client that hasn't gotten tattooed by someone like you guys yet, or that's looking for someone to do that kind of tattooing? How would you instruct them to go about seeking an artist to work with?
Finding somebody that aligns with them energetically, finding somebody who is good, see their portfolio, see their work. Also, what kind of relationships that artist has with, for instance, doctors and insurances and things like that. And also just your energy. Your energy is really what dictates if somebody's going to come to you or not. If I walked into a tattoo studio and I was treated with a snobby attitude, looking down their nose at me, looking me up and down like, who are you? I wouldn't stay there. So it's seek out the person that makes you feel comfortable and heard.
Saying these things based upon our clientele's reaction to what it is that drives them to us, we can absolutely put a stamp on what Michelle just said, because that's what we hear, right? Our clients tell us, that's why I keep coming back to you, right? That's why you're my tattoo girl. That's why you're my tattoo guy. That's why I will never go to anybody else. And I'm like, hey, look, you can get tattooed by other people, but do yourself a favor and make sure that you see their portfolio, make sure that, you know, you look at your environment, make sure that it's clean, you know, it's clean and all these other things. You don't belong to me. And if you want some other, you know, type of art, do it, you know, but if you do, yes, do these things. Number one, yes, portfolio, make sure that they can do what they're saying that they're going to be able to accomplish for you. And that's a big one, I think, is you know, people talk out the side of their neck, and you know, and then they end up with something that they not only was it not what they wanted, but now they got to walk around with this guilt of this horrendous event that took place, and fear that it will happen again. So they don't go to a different artist to get it taken care of. And they would rather literally not go to the beach every summer for the rest of their life, or wear a shirt at the beach
because of it
for every summer for the rest of their life, because this horrific thing that has taken place to them. And they, you know, I've had a lot of clients, literally, you saved my life. Like, oh my God, I could go to the beach now, and where, you know, I could go, right? And like, literally, that happens, you know.
Yeah, you
and
restored their confidence, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as far as them looking for where to go, that's something I want to speak on this right now, but because I've invested so much time and energy, and Stacie knows what we're working on, we're working on something really big, and it's taking a lot of our energy collectively to make sure it's executed appropriately.
And we've been doing these things for quite some years.
Once that's done and it's stamped and sealed, then I can speak on that as far as what a client should look for, or what a potential client would look for.
Sure. Well, Michelle, you especially with your notes in the back.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of our clients that know what we're talking about, they love us to death. They wouldn't go anywhere else, and not because we say so, but because they just simply wouldn't. Because we do care. Like I said, the moment you come and we kick in, eat a sandwich, and do tattoo work, and order a pizza, or whatever it is we're going to do for 10 hours of you getting drilled on. Oh, they don't take that out of it. Oh, it's a drill now. Oh, it's a drill.
You're food bonding. That's a whole different level of connection right there.
Stacie probably has some good input on what people should be looking for.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. So I believe that most of us, if we're professional, we're going to have good customer service, and we're going to make sure that our client feels seen and heard and all of that. There are some comments to avoid, like anything that minimizes what they've been through. I see a lot of women that there's a lot of divorces that happen through breast cancer. It's incredibly unfortunate, because usually in a divorce, the kid chooses a side, and usually the house gets sold. So not only does a woman lose her life savings paying for treatment, and her breasts, and the amputation, and the body dysmorphia, and the trauma, and all that stuff, but then the family unit might start to break apart when a divorce is happening. And so it's so much more than that. And people who don't understand trauma are likely to say stuff like, if the woman's like, oh, my husband didn't show up for this, and she's releasing trauma, right? She's letting it out. And we want them to let it out if we can handle it. And so lots of people, I've seen it with my own eyes multiple times from many different people. They're like, oh, you didn't need him. And I'm thinking, yeah, she freaking did, just like I needed my mom, but my mom was dead. I'm like, I needed my mom. Like any little girl in a traumatic situation, like, right, like I needed that, and I had to live with not having it. But when these divorces are happening, it's a severe effect on the quality of life. So we do need people that understand trauma a little bit more, and instead of minimizing statements, say maximizing statements, like, yeah, wow, on top of everything else, and just like agree like with what they're saying. So there is a different kind of client care that comes with this. It's not that blanket, like put on your nice hat and whatever, and don't feel these things. We have to be the artists who can say, yes, feel these things. I see you, I hear you, you're safe with me, and I will never judge you. I will never judge you for your feelings. But then on the technical aspect of it, we want to see that they're drawing areolas, and that the areolas look like they would exist in real life. We want to see that they've been tattooing at least 5 years. Personally, I don't really believe that areola tattooing should be done by anyone who doesn't have 5 years under their belt. And all of the years of training, and I've probably had 300 students over the years, and they've really confirmed that. The more that I see happening, the more I'm confirmed in that belief, and I'm getting more like a little rigid, and like, I don't think you can learn this unless you really know how to feel the skin. And that just takes time. It takes a lot of time. And so I do believe there's a certain length that we need to see. The drawing aspect of it, of course, is so important, but also the tattooing scars aspect of it, because it's usually glossed over. You're like, oh yeah, I can teach you how to do an areola just as easy as I can teach you how to do an eyebrow. And I'm like, being that I've been through it, I'm like, that is not an ethical statement. I don't think that you're being respectful of the impact that you have on this client, because they are going to wear that mark that you make. And I don't believe everyone's like, I just do this. I'm like, I'm sure you do. However, it's harder than it looks. And it really does need to be treated with the respect that these clients deserve. And I'm just not seeing that enough. So clients should be looking for portfolios, experience, and scar training specifically before areola training, in my opinion.
No, that's great. That's great. Perfect. Well, I want to commend you guys all on the work that you're doing collectively and individually, and the years and hours of time that you guys have put into this. Michelle and Ian, obviously, we've talked a lot over the years, and then I've been a little bit more intimate with the work that you guys do. And it's just commendable, and it's really inspiring to see artists that truly care. And that's why I love having guests like you on the podcast, because that's what this platform is all about, is really just education. And it's great to hear what to look for, what clients should look for, because this isn't just a tattoo artist podcast. This is a tattoo enthusiast podcast. So it's just as much for collectors as it is for artists. So it's great to hear all that from you guys. And it's very inspiring to hear the stories that you guys told, and about just the way you connect with your clients on an energetic level is really something that probably doesn't happen on a broad scale. You know, I think I see a lot of artists put headphones on when they're tattooing, and they're not having really any connection at all with their clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild to me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I used to put headphones on, but I would put headphones on with nothing in them, and I would always tell my client, hey, look, I'm going to put headphones on just because I don't want people coming over here and interrupting me, but there's nothing going on in it, so we can still talk. People will just think I've got music playing, so I can't hear them when they walk up, you know. Like, so
It's interesting to me too, because I kind of like delved into that a little bit, because I think a lot of tattooers, it seems, maybe I'm wrong, are stricken with quite a tremendous amount of anxiety while they're trying to implement whatever it is that they're rendering, or whatever there is they're executing on the body. And maybe it's imposter syndrome, maybe it's something within their self, but I think there's a lot of traumatized artists and a lot of people that are suffering with anxiety. So they're trying to zone in and zone out. And I just want to give them a big hug and be like, dude, your work is beautiful. Open up, sing with your clients, you know, and we will stab you in a good way. You know, it's like, have a good time. It's a craft. It's supposed to be a bond experience. And I will sing the whole time, and my clients usually sing with me, you know, unless it's a trauma situation where there's some stuff coming up. But I feel the energy. I know my place. I'll just say that. I know my place.
Well, you do. And you know artists, we know artists that simply have had to take a, you know, sabbatical away from the craft, because mentally and I'm talking phenomenal artists, like, what? Like, really? But because of that mental breakdown, or their inability to shut or turn on specific, you know, avenues in their own head, literally have had to, you know, like, shut it down, like
disappear for a while,
and disappear for 2 years, and write a book, and then, you know, come back and, okay, I figured the laws of the universe,
right?
You know, and so, you know, whatever it is, we just gotta be there for each other. You can't. There's no you know, certain way, or this is the path. But when it comes, you know, of the emotional side of being a tattooer, when it comes to the education side, absolutely there should be a standard. And being there for each other is a whole different, you know, animal in society anyways, right? But if you can approach it all with care, you know, And I don't care. Oh, did you see that dude? He's covered in tattoos. He's gonna beat you. I wouldn't talk to that really, because all it takes is 2 seconds or 5. Yeah, how about 30 seconds to chill with me, and you'll be like, all right, man, this dude isn't what I thought he was, or whatever.
Right. Right.
Not putting stigmas on things, but we as a society and people in general, we do. So, but if you cannot let that affect you, which is very hard, especially being tattooers, and it takes time. Yeah. It could take you 20, 15, 10 years, at least 5 years to get through it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
at least, Stacie, like I said, you can't be doing this unless you got, and I said the same thing when it comes to our education thought on what we want to do.
5 years.
And she's like, 2, 10, 5. And I'm like, no, at least 5 years. I'm not nothing, man. I'm sorry. Just like you said, Stacie. Oh, but I can do it. I have the skill. I've been drawing on. I don't care if you do or have. Keep doing it.
Like
Keep doing it.
Like we all, when we all started out, we all thought we knew more than we knew. You don't know what you know until, right? I remember the old timers telling me, like, it takes you 10 years to even figure out, sorry guys, it takes you even 10 years to figure out the skin. And I'm like, maybe it took you 10 years, but it won't take me 10 years. And then I was like, oh fuck, they were totally right. So it's just coming back to like a common ground.
Yeah.
I believe that tattooing should be that we should have body art and we have cosmetic tattooing, like permanent makeup, right? And that we should, whichever one of those is our calling, we master that, and then we can advance into the paramedical artistry. That's my thoughts on that.
And Stacie, I have a little bit of news that might be traumatic for you today. Well, we're the old timers now.
It was crazy, right?
Literally, I was just gonna say.
How do we look so good? But we look so good. It can't be true, right?
We do.
I don't know.
Well, on that note, my beautiful friends, I want to thank you for your time today. I do need a favor from you guys. I need you to email me headshots for all of you for the cover for the podcast episode. And also, if you would be so kind as to email me any links that you want me to include, particular to your own individual platforms, I'll gladly put those in on the podcast description on the YouTube channel and the podcast episode so that people know where to link and connect with you guys. Or if they want to, clients are out there looking for someone to do some tattooing and you guys want to connect with these beautiful, amazing people, I will make sure to include those links for you guys.
Thank you.
We're always looking for people to get their tax write-off and donate to this nonprofit, building this thing. It's going to go real big. It's already on its way that way. We're always looking for team members to be part of something great.
Be part of something great, because it is great. Helping.
Yeah. And I know how much time and energy and work you guys put into that. So, when we put that link up on the screen, we'll make sure, people please go check out what Ian and Michelle are doing. And, help support that project if you can. It's great to support our community. Also, artists in the industry that are listening to this podcast. These are some great people that you can connect with as well. Feel free to reach out to them through their social media platforms.
Thank you, Rob.
You're awesome, Rob. Thank you.
You guys are great. Thank you so much for taking some time with me today. I hope we covered everything that you wanted to get out there.
Huh?
I feel like we could probably talk that.
There's
always part 2 or see where with all of this, and just keep plugging forward to the agenda of what we spoke about. And Stacie, I know that we're going to be doing that as best we can. It needs to be a standard. Anyway.
All right, love y'all.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.